The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. We are so excited. Business Analysis as a Service. I know that we have a lot of people interested in this webinar. This is a big question for small to medium-sized businesses, so we want to get started right away. I do just want to remind everybody, if you have a question, go ahead and type it into the question box. We'll get it called out at the end and get your question answered. Also, if you want to go back and re-watch this presentation, or you feel like somebody else in your organization should see it, we will have a recording of it up on our website by the end of the day, abc-computers.com. So without further ado, I will hand it over to our presenters.
Thank you, Abby. Good morning, everyone. My name is Alan Wine. I'm one of the presenters today. We appreciate you all taking time out of your day to sit with us through this hour-long presentation. With me today is John Grant and James Strack. The three of us kind of make up the business analysis group at ABC, along with some other duties. We would like to walk you through what we think for business analysis, as well as a service we offer, and then we'll have a few different topics to work with. Just real quick, for those of you that may not remember or may not know who we are, ABC is a computer firm. We've been around for over 30 years. We now have in excess of 50 employees. We have 4 office locations, where 3 of them are in Wisconsin. We have a sales office and technical office in Rhinelander. Our corporate office is in Onalaska, Wisconsin. We have a support and development group in Wapaka. And then in South Bend, we have a sales and development office also. The red pins represent several of our staff that work either from their homes or in a small individual office. Again, primarily sitting up on the northern Midwest area, but we do have clients on the East and West Coast, as well as down south farther into Indiana. A little bit about the presenters and who we are. John has been in manufacturing, consulting, and systems for over 25 years. He's worked with CPA firms as well as other computer implementation firms. You can see the wide variety of systems that he's worked with. He also has good experience and certifications in a variety of process control systems, Lean, Six Sigma, the theory of constraints, and others. And then good experience and broad experience with just general process flow on the manufacturing floor and in order entry areas, for process, shop floor data collection, bill of materials. You can bring a nice picture to how to make those areas more efficient and utilize the software in a more exacting way. James Strack has over 30 years experience in the IT world. The last 16, he was CIO for a large energy corporation. He has experience in programming as well as consulting and strategic planning for the IT group. And you can see that he's got a broad experience in legal, petroleum, ready-mix concrete, a variety of industries that he's worked with. And then finally, I've got about 20 years experience in IT management and programming. I've written software for warehouse management systems, data collection, websites, accounting. Through my years, done a lot of consulting. I also have 10 years experience in manufacturing and distribution, where I was actually vice president of operations. I ran 5 facilities, about 800 million in revenue, and we had about 1,000 employees. So I've got a nice broad business background as well as an IT focused background. Over my years, I've been in corrugated industries, the blown and cast film industries. I live in Elkhart, Indiana, which you may or may not know is the RV capital of the world. So I've spent a lot of time in the fiberglass forming industry, also as used for truck caps and trailers. The topics we'd like to cover today are, there'll be a number of them, but we'll try to be brief in each one just to give you some good pointers. But you can see that I'm going to work on strategic planning and KPIs. John will be talking briefly about business for business, as well as some of the tools we use, which is value stream mapping and process review. And then James will wrap it up with a high-level technology planning review, and also kind of talk about how do you leverage some of those old technology you may still have in your facility, or upgrade them, and when does that upgrade path make the most sense? So without further ado, we'll start with the business analysis, our vision of it, and how it can help your companies, and then we'll talk about KPIs also. Business analysis has both good and bad connotations for people. Frequently, they can see it as a consulting firm that comes in and helps them. Sometimes people don't like that, but what we feel is that we bring the more objective world to some of your meetings or some of your conversations, some of your planning. Sometimes companies, as you all know, can get trapped into looking past what we would consider to be the obvious. I like to use the analogy that, you realize a light switch isn't working, and everybody knows it's not working, and you need to get it fixed one day, and eventually everybody just stops using that light switch because they know it doesn't work, instead of actually stepping back and going, hey, can we fix the light switch? You just kind of learn to look past those things and work around them. What we feel we bring to the table is the ability to tell people to fix the light switch. And it really does take an outsider sometimes to kind of stir up the pot, if you will. And I like to talk about it as asking the dumb questions. Why are you not doing this? What is wrong with having that paper just disappear? Because really Sally Joe doesn't need to see that piece of paper for her order entry process, yet we continue to do it. I heard the story one time about the woman who, I think maybe you've heard this, who make a roast every Sunday, and she'd cut a quarter of it off and fry it in a different pan than her roasting pan. Finally, one day somebody said, why do you do that? And she goes, I don't know. My grandmother always did it that way. And then come to find out, grandmother's pan was just too small for the roast she'd always buy, so she'd cut a quarter of it off and bake it in another pan. You forget to ask what really are the dumb questions. And I think that is what we like to be able to say we can help you with. When we're sitting there listening to you, we can challenge some of those long-held beliefs you may have about your business model or where you're going or why you're wanting to do a change to your process. And we can tell you, look, from our experience in a variety of industries, here's an area that you need to take a look at. Here's a process that you may want to review. I was just at a client a couple of weeks ago. They asked me just to come and sit in for a couple of hours while they were having an e-commerce conversation. And they had a nice presentation laid out. We took an hour to go through it. They had their budgets worked out. They had all the processes. It was a major overhaul of their website, as well as talking about getting their customers to sign up and put their orders into the system. And finally, after about an hour, I kind of looked at everybody in the room and said, can you explain to me the problem you're trying to solve? And everybody was kind of quiet for a while. And come to find out, the real problem they were trying to solve was the owner said it took too long to get orders into the system. So he wanted the customers to put them in. Well, the problem was not that we needed customers and they were screaming to put their orders into the system automatically. We needed to look at the order entry process. Now, that doesn't mean they may not still go forward with e-commerce, but when everybody's kind of quiet when you ask an obvious question, that's a benefit to them. It helps them refocus what they're trying to do. And so the tools we use for that frequently are things like value stream mapping, which John will describe to you. We can do big data analysis. If you want to contract us to say, look, I got a boatload of data here. Can you tell me more about my sales history and what I need to be doing? Or we can look at process flow out on the plant floor or inside the office, and how do we lean that out and make it better. What we normally find when we talk to companies about business analysis is, one of the top 5 reasons here. Well, we can do all this internally. We don't need anybody from the outside to help us. Okay, I can relate to that. I appreciate that comment. My question usually after that is, well, how many times do you do this now? You do it weekly, quarterly, monthly, once a year? And frequently what I hear is, well, we haven't done it for a couple of years. Well, just being able to do something internally and actually doing it are two very different things. And one of the processes we bring to the table, aside from being the objective outside viewer, is also the facilitator to say, look, we said we were going to do these quarterly, let's do them quarterly. And let's make them focused on a topic and get it resolved. People will talk about it costs too much. I don't have the money for that. All right, again, budgets are important. We all want to make money. We don't want to spend it where we shouldn't. But by the same token, it's not about cost, it's about ROI. So if we can do a process and review it and change things and all of a sudden save you those 2 extra people you thought you were going to have to hire because you were getting overly busy, but the process change allowed us to do more with less, that's an ROI that's effective. And so if you spend 20 grand with us in a year, but you end up kind of not having to hire 2 people at $50,000 a year, that's an unattended savings, but that's $80,000 net that you didn't have to spend that year. So that's how we try to change the way people view this. The classic one I hear a lot is, oh, all you guys do is just analyze what we do and put it back in a fancy report and send it back to us. All right, I agree. We're going to send you back a report. You're going to get a list of things that we think you should do. But if you're not doing that internally yourself today, there's value associated with that. People feel they don't have the time or they don't have the staff for all the meetings. Well, we're all busy, but let's make the meetings focused. Let's make them quick. The classic example of a CEO that took out the conference room table and the chairs, so his meetings went from 2 hours to 15 minutes. You can do things to really focus people's attention and help, and that's what we like. Then people will say, I've already got KPIs. I've got good strategic plan. Fantastic. We're happy for you. I hope you're reviewing it regularly. If you're not looking at your KPIs every 6 months and saying, is this still valid, then maybe we can come in and help you with some of that stuff. So we offer an executive as a service. What we say is, look, we have high-level expertise in accounting, manufacturing, distribution. Obviously, we're technology experts. But we can help you if you contract with us as a service and you sign up as a subscription and say, look, every month I want about 10 hours of your time. Well, this month it may be CFO related stuff. Next month it may be manufacturing. But you can bring us in or have us come in remotely to sit down and talk with your folks for a set number of hours each month. Maybe we join quarterly staff meetings or we join monthly staff meetings to help you focus on where you're going to see the improvements. Because as we all know, if business isn't changing, and improving, you're not growing. And that's going to be a long-term issue for you. Finally, we also provide quarterly roundtable meetings with this executive as a service. So we set up meetings where people can either join remotely or come join us at a conference center, and we talk about 1 or 2 topics that are specific to a given industry, and we'd really try to get the best practices around, maybe not specific to an industry in general, but specific to business by far. So just to kind of talk about KPIs for a little bit here, key performance indicators, the way I've always viewed them and the way I use them is, at a glance, I should be able to figure out how to see how well my company is running. I want to be able to come in the morning. I want to see a short little report that tells me these key 5 to 7 things are at these numbers. They're within my spec. If I see them and I like them, I don't have to focus on them anymore. I can go on to something else in my business. If I see one that's out of whack, if I see it's way too good or way too bad, I'm probably going to pick the phone up and give the department head a call and say, what happened yesterday? What did we run into? Or, hey, our month-to-date numbers aren't looking very good. What are we going to do to fix that? This is management by exception. This is management at a glance. Is it the detail of a financial statement? Certainly not. But is it the ability to give you a quick indicator to say, I need to focus on something, or I don't have to worry about that today? That's what they're for. You want to look at them from a company-wide perspective. What are the key things I know from a company standpoint that I need to be able to see every day? Departments should have KPIs. What are the things that as a manager, as I walk through my plant, I got 5 or 6 things I look for, and that should tell me how well I'm running. And every departmental manager that's done it for any length of time can do that. They've got them in the background. They know what to do with them. There's a variety of ways to show KPIs. You can show them graphically with bar charts or pie charts. You can have red, yellow, green indicators. I've seen places on plant floors that have big screens up, and they have 4 or 5 things listed, and it's just a stoplight. Red, green, yellow. If it's in green, hey, we're all good today. If it's in yellow, well, we're starting to slide. We need to be careful. If it's in red, the whole plant knows, crap's up, we need to deal with this, or shipments are down. What's the problem? The other way to do it is just simple numbers. Now, I'm a numbers guy. I like to look at just straight numbers, maybe with some color coding, but it's all about what you like to see. So from my standpoint, this is what I saw on a regular basis when I was running the blown and cast film plants. Show me my pounds per hour, my labor dollars. If it was green, it was extraordinarily good. If it was plain white, it was just within a range that I didn't have to worry about. But if it was highlighted in red, you know what? I needed to call somebody because there was an issue. And I would get this every day in my mailbox in a spreadsheet, on email, and it would just give me a quick glance. I mean, I get in at 7 in the morning, take a look at this, pick the phone up, call shipping, go, what's going on with return cases, or the customer service manager. Or maybe I brought it to the staff meeting and said, guys, let's take a look at this and get back to me. But it was an easy way for me to manage my company from the standpoint of knowing where to devote my time and who to call. And sometimes if it was green, I called them up and said, guys, we're too good here. What's going on? Did we miss some data? What's our problem? Another good example of it is a busy one. This is a sales dashboard. And for those of you running Navision, and if you've got JET reports, this is something that you can build in JET reports. And it can be published with a link, and it can go out to executives or departmental people on a regular basis. You can see this has a lot of data on it, but some people like this. They like to be able to slice and dice from this standpoint. You're really tracking 4 or 5 things here, but I can click on salesperson or item category or product group and drill into those in more detail. And so it allows somebody to have a drill-in capability visually that they don't perhaps have more easily today for some of their reports or some of their standards that they work with. Again, this is all about what makes the most sense for companies, how they manage and how they run their business. So I'd kind of like to wrap up this first piece with talking about examples of KPIs that I used when I ran my blown and cast film companies. So I had company-wide metrics. Again, what were my pounds per hour? In film, resin, you work in pounds. So you notice most things are in pounds, or it's total cases shipped. I knew the average pounds per case. I was able to do those numbers. This is the stuff I wanted to see. My selling price per pound. I wanted to see how that was moving around because I knew what my cost on average per pound was also. So if I started seeing that selling dollars price slip, I may have a conversation with sales and go, are we selling more of our low volume price? What's the issue here? Why did we do that? Oh, we had a special. All right, makes sense, understand it. But again, it was able to look at those things quickly. Production, some of them matched what were on company-wide, but some of them didn't. Some of them were focused strictly to production. In blown film, that every time the bubble drops on the extruder, you're going to have more scrap, you're going to have more labor. They wanted to track that. Every time you tracked work orders, how many times did I have a changeover? That was going to reflect on my scrap and labor. Shipping the same way. How many cases did I ship? How many picks per hour? This is how these people ran their departments, and this is the focus they did for giving them a picture, not of how perfect am I going to be at the month end, but how on a day-to-day basis, how well is my company running or my department running? What we find as business analysis people when we come in and talk to companies, frequently, while they know this stuff inherently in their mind, they have yet to document it. And so one of the things we do as a tool is we try to talk to low-level managers as well as C-level and say, what are the things that you look at when you walk through your plant? What are the things you look at as you walk through the warehouse? What are the numbers that tell you whether or not you're making good or bad decisions that day? And as an outside consultant coming in, we're able to help identify where those things are and what to look for and how to do them. Finally, on KPIs, the last point I'll make is these are living documents. These are things that change as the years progress by, as business model changes, as item category structures change. So this is not a case of set it and forget it and never go back and change these. It's something that you need to review once every 6 months, at least once a year, to talk about where am I at, am I managing the right things, am I measuring the right things, and how do I want to work from there. So quick, fast. I appreciate it. But that's kind of where we're headed from an analysis standpoint, and why we think this stuff's important. So what I'm going to do is turn it over to my colleague, John Grant, and he's going to talk about his next two topics.
Thanks, Alan. I'm just talk about value stream mapping a little bit, and a little bit about a process to give you a flavor of what kind of things we might be able to do. And this slide here is really a shift in since I've been at ABC Computers. I think we were more of a business to business, meaning when you needed something, we were there. Business for business is a different mentality, and I think that's what you're seeing in our approach here. And what I mean by that is, let's see, get my slide going here. This slide was something that the NAV user group I borrowed from, but it's a really decent slide of where we're going, and maybe we're there already, but it's what's happening in the industry. I truly believe with companies like ours working with their customers. If you look at this traditional partner, years past, help you with your software solution, in our case NAV, deploy this solution, kind of throw you over to support, and that's kind of where you ended up. And we had this constant struggle with like a big bang event for upgrades. It would be you'd run in place kind of for 3-4 years, and then move to an upgrade. And what's driving change is this business for business partner approach. And I think we have over the last 3 years ramped up our ability to help customers. So now the vision is more, yes, we have NAV as a backbone for a lot of our customers. We deploy the product, but then the job doesn't stop. Support has been ramped up in our business. We have we stay in touch. We want to have you have proficient users. Here is where the business analysis as a service would come in, taking a look at processes with you, part of your team. We, like Alan mentioned, either on a phone call or on site. We have that ability. We're not protecting turf. We can ask the question and look at what could we do. And one of my stories is I used to implement Microsoft CRM, and one of the first things I would do is get the sales folks in the room, and the first thing we would do is whiteboard all the reasons we can't do something. Why can't we get this to work? And that would be 15, 20 minutes, and then basically you would put that off to the side. And now the challenge is, how can we do it? Seems kind of a basic approach, but it really was getting people to think out of the box a little bit. So the B for B partner isn't just a buzzword in our company. We are actively looking to work with our customers much beyond, okay, you upgrade, we implemented, now we're going to sit back and wait for you to tell us when we should upgrade again. Because we know that there's opportunity to leverage that product you own throughout. And the next slide here is a decent slide of what the future might look like for our customers. And this is kind of broken up into working with you to say, okay, here's an example. For instance, upgrades and roll-ups. Okay, working with Microsoft, we are fully on board with regular scheduled roll-ups, and then once a year upgrade. Now, obviously, the cost has to be part of that, but we feel that is where we're heading. You actually put on a calendar, okay, we're gonna get the latest updates in March, June, September, December, and we are going to upgrade. You just put it on a calendar. It's a cost-effective event. you're always current. That kind of thinking to work with you. And then also the system monitoring, measurements are ongoing, strategic planning, responsive support. All those things become a model to set up with your company. How do you want this to work? And if you see that this is not like I said, the business to business was more, let's put the software in, and then we'll wait for you to say when is the upgrade. Moving away from that to a more business for business as a strategic partner, leveraging the expertise that we think we can bring to your team with the people we've brought on board in the last 2-3 years, and becoming more of a resource for your team, where you could pick up the phone and just call somebody and brainstorm something. And obviously, costs are always part of the issue, but like Alan mentioned, maybe it's 8 to 10 hours a month, and you're not afraid to pick up the phone and talk to us about what are other companies doing, because that's what we can bring to the table. Really, is as the software evolves, your information systems evolve, tablets become part of your product. People working at home, how do you leverage all that kind of opportunity? We feel we can come to the table and be part of your team from that. So this is kind of a view of where things are moving in the industry. And business analysis as a service. I'm going to reiterate what Alan said. Consultants can challenge organizations to keep the ideas from stagnating. Probably the biggest obstacle is that it can't be done. As I mentioned in the CRM example I had, how do we keep that process working? And having an outside person, and why have as a service? You don't have to hire that person in-house. You don't have to bring in I'll pick on like a lean consultant. You don't have to bring them in full time. Leverage our team. Give us a chance to prove that we can be that member of your team and work with you. I'm going to go into a little bit of process review from 10,000 feet, and how Vanishing mapping out of the lean world is a great tool when it applies, and we'll go through that a little bit. So if I look at a process review, and I'm just going to say some of these steps are determined on what do you need. I believe each opportunity would be unique, but here are some of the things that we would consider if you brought us in to say, hey, we're having an issue from the time our sales orders come in to the time the engineering work is done to the time it hits the shop floor. It's taking like 3 weeks. We need to get that down to a week or 2 weeks. Those are the kind of things that I feel we could work with your team and provide that. I've often told that, I was on the other side of the fence too. I was an operations manager at a small green sand foundry, and a lot of times they would say that the consultants come in and they don't know your business, but they have the process to help your team. That's true in a lot of cases. I like to think our team, because we also work, probably most of the opportunity we're going to have is with customers who run NAV. We don't have to take NAV and put it off to the side in discussions because we know NAV also. So it becomes part of the discussion if needed in some areas. So this is a quick view of some of the steps we might do. I added some wording to just a couple to give you a sample of what does that mean. Like if you're looking at a process, pretty straightforward, but it's like a Kaizen event or whatever. You meet with the process owners, gain an understanding, and map it possibly, and I'll go into that next. We like to think we have a lot of experience with best practices to bring to your team, i.e. how have other companies done this? take advantage of unused system functionality. Because we are odds are you'll have NAV. We have that advantage over a consultant who doesn't know the product, because I've had consultants come in and the first thing they do is, let's take the software off the table and look at what you're doing. I know why they do that, because they don't know the product, and that's fine. But because we know and we can leverage that, I think we have a great opportunity to work with your team. Develop super users. I'm a big fan of that. In your company, with systems, you should have a couple people that are the go-to. And then metrics, which Alan went through, KPIs, what's important to your business. I was with one company who made buckets for the for digging and whatnot, and they would have different size buckets, and it was the question of, how do you know you had a good day in production or a bad day? And the net result was they developed a point system. If the bucket was 6 foot wide, say it was worth 20 points. If it was a 4 foot wide bucket, it was worth 15, et cetera, et cetera. So every day, at the end of the day, they counted what got finished and had a number, unrelated to dollars, unrelated to drawings completed or hours. It was a simple number that was a measurement of how do you know you had a good day or bad day in production. So those are some of the things that a process review could touch on. Just give you a little flavor of that. I'm going to switch now to why we're really supportive of value stream mapping. And this is from lean thinking for any out there that have been through any lean training. The very best tool for identifying waste, cost added activities, and time is value stream mapping. I've got a small example of that, and like I said, not every situation warrants this. This is a small, very small example. And what I wanted to show you was, what is a value stream map? Now there are current state and there are future state. But this isn't a training session on value stream mapping, but the example here is, down the left-hand side is, what is the activity, who's involved, what's triggered, task completed, what software is it entered into, and how long does it take? And you may use this tool, and it may apply. And I like this tool, and we can train. We've done this at companies where we train the users how to run with it after we then get a copy of it versus facilitating the actual value stream map. And to me, it points out very visually what you're doing. We did this for one company with, it was from the time the material hit the shop floor to the time it was consumed, there was a gap in the information system, which affected planning, which affected purchasing, all those kind of things. So we documented how this was all going on, and during this value stream map, I actually had the IT manager. Someone brought up that they entered something into a spreadsheet, and he was like, "Well, how long have you been doing that?" And he said, "Over a year." And it was like, "We're stopping that." It was one of those, like, they call it a do it, something right in that meeting that was a non-value added step. Because what you're trying to do then is get into how identifying these steps, oops, let me get rid of that, is how you're adding value or not. So you're looking at, does this step add value to the process? So if I go down, that's kind of a high level of a value stream map. Is one tool that we might use. Out of that, it's kind of a little small to read, but become 3 different categories of, there's called do-its, which are things that might be done right away. There's events, which require, term is Kaizen event, a little more follow-up, and then there's projects out of that. So there becomes a method to the madness of, when you map a process, and how do you step back and look at all the opportunity you have to improve it. And that's really what I had for process, value stream mapping, and a little bit of where we feel systems are heading and positioning ABC as your partner where it makes sense. So with that, I turn it over to James, I guess, to do his part. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Okay, so what I'm going to briefly touch on from a high level is the strategic planning options, leveraging technology, because it's one of the things we need to always be thinking about is you make an investment in technology, and we want to make sure that we're getting the most value out of these investments. And then when an upgrade will make sense for you. So when we're talking about strategic planning, I'd like to define the difference between strategic and tactical. And strategic really is the what and the why. Strategic is setting goals, the big picture. How do we set guidelines, things we're looking to do? DSOs, for example, day sales outstanding. You're trying to track how quickly do we turn our money over? How quickly do we get paid for our invoices? Those are a high strategic thing that we want to make improvements on. The tactical is more on the how. How do we execute to accomplish that strategic goal? And so just having an understanding that that's, when we think about those two things, you have to have one and the other. If we are dealing with strategic processing and we never think about how to actually execute, if we make a strategic decision without developing the tactical how, the decision path is almost a guaranteed failure. So we have to have a strategic vision that says, I want to reduce our DSOs down to 2 days. We then have to take the time and do the planning to say, how do we achieve that goal? What are the resources needed? And how do we execute that? While we do that, we also then need to track it. And again, if you're a nav user, we have dashboards. We have the big view, big picture where you can track your KPIs and you can say, hey, we're looking for DSOs. Are we meeting our goals of getting our DSOs down to 2 days or 3 days or whatever the goal might be? But we also need to track other things as well then. Because when we're doing DSOs, I was working with a company and that was their goal. They wanted their DSOs to be 2 days. What they weren't looking at was everyone was jamming and working so hard to meet that 2-day goal, their error rate was increasing exponentially. So having your goals, and you can chart these and graph them and make it so a very quick glance view of how you're doing to accomplish your goals here, is we look at the entire process. And what we bring as a team to the table is the ability to sit down with you, talk about your goals, help you set a strategy, help you work to the tactical side, and bring in the what ifs and what about questions of things like, okay, you want to accomplish this, but here are a bunch of other things that need to be taken into account. Next, we talk about leveraging technology. And when you think about it, technology is an investment. If you have a delivery truck, you may be looking at, I purchased this truck, I need to make maximum value of that truck. How many routes can that truck run in a day? Should I run that truck multiple shifts? You're trying to say, how do I get the maximum value out of my investment? We try to get people to think about that way about technology. It's a large investment for most companies. And what tools do we have to leverage that technology and get our maximum values? So things like tracking your DSOs. I worked with a company that we dealt with bill of ladings, and they knew that they would hire so much staff to process so many bill of ladings and match them to the invoice. Now, we came in and had a conversation to say, well, what if we automated the process? What if we could scan in all of your bill of ladings, use a custom piece of software to do the match of the invoice to the bill of ladings, kick out only the exceptions, and as Alan stated earlier, managing by exception. How many more can we do? How much growth can you have without adding staff to the process? So that's where we want people to be thinking about making that leverage of technology. Even if it's something simple in the earlier days when you used to have a copy machine and a fax machine and printers and scanners, now we have machines that do all of that. So you're leveraging that piece of technology that says, hey, I've got one piece of equipment instead of 4 or 5. It does all the things I need to do. I'm now making it 9% productive instead of 30% productive. And those are some of the things that we're always trying to look at as we say, let us help you leverage that technology investment. Let's make sure you're getting full value so that you can make good decisions and it's a valuable investment for you. Things simple as salespeople or workforce, where you're collecting your data in the field and sending it back to your offices. Again, another way that leverages the technology, it brings value, and it says, I'm using something that is only a small part of the software, but here's another piece that's another small part, and sooner or later you're now using 70, 80% of your software investment or technology investment. The other topic about upgrading is there's no right or wrong answer when someone asks us all the time, when should I upgrade? There's a lot, it really depends on your business, it depends on your goals, and those have to be taken into account when we have these questions. So it's not a one-size-fits-all. Everyone has a different reason and a different schedule for upgrading technology, software. Even if you were replacing your trucks, if we go back to the delivery trucks, everyone's going to have a different schedule on why they may want their trucks to be replaced sooner than later. But a couple of the things to think about is the current technology that you're using. Does that fulfill or complement your strategic goals for the business? Are you using products that are supportable? The technology we've taken for granted, but it is integral to your business and our way of life today. And when you're running your business, if you're using products that are obsolete, you're potentially creating problems down the road for you, and you may find that you're hurting your business and its ability to grow or be efficient by having products that you can no longer leverage. Has your business needs changed? We watch this all the time. Companies grow, they make acquisitions, they merge with other companies, or they increase product lines, and all of a sudden now their products and their technology needs to be changed to accommodate those needs and those growths. Does it benefit your business and your bottom line? Sometimes you make an upgrade because it's the cost of doing business, and to stay on top of your business, you need to do it. Sometimes you do it because there's a strategic reason and an ROI that says there's a significant benefit to our business, and we can increase our profits and we can increase our productivity by upgrading it. There's also a temperament for change. Some folks want to be on the bleeding edge of technology, and every new thing that comes out, they want it. And in some cases, it's, I'm more comfortable waiting, making sure it's fully adopted, and then move on. What kind of throws in the mix when we talk about upgrading, though, is something that John brought up, which is the new path for NAV is set so that the upgrade process is not such a monumental task as it used to be. The upgrade process is changing to be faster, more dynamic, and more efficient, so that if you're worried about it cutting into your productivity and the time it takes away from your resources and your internal folks and doing business, those will slowly get smaller and smaller and will become less of a factor when you're trying to upgrade. With that, I'll turn it back over and we'll go to questions.
Fantastic. Thanks, guys. So I just want to remind everybody that you have any questions, go ahead and type them right into the question box and I will get them called out for you. We'll get them answered. We'll start with some questions here. This question is specifically for John. Can you tell us a little more of how this service would work or flow from month to month?
Sure. As Alan talked, our initial rollout of this service is to contract with you for a fixed number of hours a month that can be used at your discretion. And the goal is to get us closer to your business. Have that ability to pull us in, like Alan mentioned, maybe possibly monthly team meetings you have, to be part of that team. Not run the meeting, be part of the meeting. Bring that opportunity to your team, and then, of course, there's always we want to make sure we're bringing value to your team, so we're always measured as it progresses to make sure that you're getting what you thought you were going to get with these hours each month. I don't know if Alan or James want to add to that.
Yeah, this is Alan. I'll just add a couple of things. I think the reason that we've established this to be a month-to-month is first, people don't necessarily want to have a year-long commitment until they get a comfort level with it. So kind of like, your electric bill or some of your other monthly bills, what we've said is you can turn it off if you don't want it. You get a month into it and you go, look, guys, I just don't think this is of value to us. Your cost of entry is very low, and it allows you to evaluate it as you go forward. The other is you can say, hey, you know what, we like this service, but we've got this project for 2 months we want to work on, and then tell you what, in 3 months we want to start it back up again, turn it back on, if you will, to allow you to have us come back in and do those things, meet with you and work through those processes. I think what we find is as we get this consistent pattern of being involved with your companies, we become more and more part of the company, and I think that's why we've really seen this as a subscription type method where it gets people used to us and it gets them comfortable that when we come in we're adding significant value.
Great. And we have a question that kind of follows up on that, Alan, so I don't know if you want to speak to this or if someone else wants to take it. But how will we measure that we are getting value from this service?
Yeah, I'll take that. That is actually a great question because everybody wants to know, what am I getting for it? One of the things that we need to establish with you as we start this is what is the deliverable. So it may be as simple as, like I said, with the e-commerce meeting I had a couple of weeks ago, they want an opinion. Look, we want you to come in for a couple of hours, sit with our folks, and then the owner and the CFO said, then we want to talk to you and get your opinion of what we saw. Okay, that was the deliverable. This was it. It was a short session, but that was simple. We may very well come to you, and you may come to us and say, look, we want you to sit in on these strategic planning meetings. And we want you to help us facilitate selecting a given project that we know is important, and then aid us in making sure that the meetings happen on time, that you're involved in them, and we know that by this date we have a schedule laid out, we've got a plan, it's written up, we've got CapEx that we're working with, we've got approval processes in place, and we've got a timeline for how this process is going to work, how it's going to fit in. It really boils down to being up to the customer to decide how detailed or how generic you want that deliverable, or how do we know we're getting what we're paying for to be. Obviously our goal in the end is to be a little more generic so that we're not confined by you folks, and we're all thinking just a very small thing because we want to think in broader terms about business itself. But we are happy for those initial year to say, look, we're going to have very tightly defined deliverables because we want you guys to we want to make sure we're getting what we're paying for. And I think it benefits everybody to have a list when we start this process, so that you don't feel like we're just running up the clock, so to speak, which is, one of the things that people always worry about with non-tangible, if you will, deliverables.
Great. Our next question is, how do you suggest we start?
I think here would be my recommendation. If I was sitting on the outside looking in, what I would do would be I would contact your account manager, and I would say, look, we're interested in potentially engaging ABC in the executive as a service type method. But we want to talk to you guys about, obviously, what are the costs, what are the rate schedules, and also, more importantly, what do you really have to offer? And then can we talk a little bit about areas that we think we'd like to focus on? From that standpoint, then the account manager can get back to the group and they can say, look, XYZ company, they own NAV already. Their concern is they're having trouble. Let's take an example in planning. They just don't seem to be planning well. Their production schedule is functional and working, but we just feel that there's areas there we could work on better. What do you think about that? And who's the expert? And what would we talk about? And maybe we get together for an hour or two initially with one of our experts and you folks and brainstorm, and then say, yeah, this is good, let's move forward. Again, maybe that's a 1-month contract. You go, look, we want to subscribe for a month. We'll talk through this. We'll have a series of meetings, and if we like it, we'll just keep renewing it each month until we know we're done and we're happy with it. But starting is some conversations up front without, a lot of investment on your part, either in time or in money, to just get the initial ball rolling, to get the little gray cells working and get people to start having those ideas in that conversation.
This is John again, and I'm going to piggyback on that a little bit. And I think Alan's correct. It's a new service. ABC is wanting to provide for our customers to be that partner, and the subscription service was something we talked about to allow you to have control. Basically, pretty low cost. Give us a chance. We feel we have a lot of expertise that we can bring to your team without you having to go out and hire industrial engineers, for example, or this and that, that would supplement kind of as needed resource. That's how I think we are starting this off.
And I would make one final pitch here, guys. For those of you that may be joining us that either may not be NAV, not using NAV today, or may not even be a customer, you're somebody that's on our mailing list. Don't think that all we focus on is Navision. That if you don't have NAV, we can't have the conversation. Part of what we're bringing to the table is a broad business background with a lot of different systems and a lot of different operational expertise. So it's certainly a way, for us to help you, even if it's not specific to NAV.
Okay, great. I have another question here. How often do you feel we need to upgrade our ERP system?
I guess I'll start with that one. Again, I don't know if there's any right or wrong. You certainly want to keep the ERP system current and in a supportable state. The need to upgrade may be involved with the features that are available in the upgrade and what you can leverage out of the new upgrade versus the older version. That helps make the decision for people. If you decide to do things like, you want to move to Azure and you want less of an IT infrastructure in-house. That may help you make a decision on whether to upgrade or not. So there's different factors depending upon your company and your needs and your business goals on the correct timing for it. And we certainly would work with you to help identify, is this the right time? Should you wait a little bit? When's the best opportunity to upgrade?
Okay, awesome. We have one Nav-specific question here. How can we use tablets and web apps with Nav?
Another great question. Nav inherently has ways to interface to other systems so that you can use the tablets, because 2015 will allow you to put a client on it. If we're not talking about Nav specifically, say on the tablet, you can build web apps. For example, I designed a web app for field Salesforce to collect orders, and then that directly interfaced back to Nav as an import routine, which then allowed someone to review those orders and just press a process button to convert any orders collected in the field to an invoice. You can take truck ticketing systems, which I helped design, to collect, in fact, we collected used oil and scheduled trucks to maximize the pickup loads and routes. And again, using the interfaces that are native to Nav, bring that data back, import it into Nav for processing. If any of your systems that you're building that are either web-based, custom-based, especially if they're a SQL-based product, you're doing a SQL to SQL integration, and that makes life much, much easier.
Great. All right. Well, thank you, James. That is the end of the questions that I have. I just want to remind everyone that the recording of this webinar will be up on our website later today, abc-computers.com. And John, James, and Alan, great presentation, guys. I really think that, I know I personally found it informative. I think that our attendees found it informative. So with that, we want to thank everyone for attending and wish you a great rest of your day.